Now, this is something I really want to talk about to be sure that everyone is cautious and stays level-headed at all times. Now, for context, I live in the middle of nowhere in Canada. It was an old town that had quite a few abandoned buildings due to absence of residents. Me and many friends were tired of the lack of entertainment options for us, so what we did was explore these abandoned buildings. Prior to the experience I'm about to talk about, we never had anything too crazy happen to us. Occasionally we'd see a small bit of blood like liquid, and we did see a pentagram on the ground from someone who went to a house previously, but nothing too bad, until the last time I had gone exploring abandoned buildings. Now, when I was younger, I used to go to a daycare that was part mental hospital. Weird combination, I know. It closed down due to a lack of patients and lack of children at the daycare. I decided to go back there with my friends a few years ago. For context, I was 15 when this happened. Most of my friends were the same age. When we did get there, it was rather cliche. There was fog, it was rather dark, and there was a light drizzle of rain. We went to the main gate, which was padlocked shut. We decided to help each other hop over it and made a ton of noise. We were laughing and giggling the whole time, unsuspecting of what was to come. We looked around the small play place / park with flashlights we had on our person. Even with our somewhat powerful flashlights, our visibility was rather limited. We decided to enter the decaying building. Glass and dirt crunched under our feet as we stepped into the daycare section of the complex. They were still old Legos, wood chips from previous furniture, old torn dolls and toys strewn about. The further we walked around the daycare section, we naturally became more and more silent until all we could hear was the crunch of the dirt under our feet. I found some crayons in a plastic container in the corner of the room. I walked over to pick them up when all of a sudden we heard a loud crash coming from behind a metal door leading to the psych ward part of the building. My friends and I all looked at each other. As a whole, we were a group of 5. Most of them were very bold and cocky. We all looked at each other when my friend Brian suggested we go back and look to see where the sound came from. Personally, I was not too fond of the idea, but with my group of friends, there was no way anyone was going to decline such a thing. We all stacked up on the door and opened it. It was rusted to the floor, and we heaved it to get it open. As we walked in, the metallic smells and must became stronger, with a hint of something else which I couldn't put my finger on at the moment. We walked in, our flashlights pointed in every direction with Brian leading the group. The hallways were tight, and to the left and right were the occasional metal doorway, some with doors open. I felt slightly claustrophobic, and it felt a little hard to breathe. As we continued, Brian shone his flashlight into a room and recoiled. We all stopped walking as Brian slowly entered the room. "What is it?" I asked him. "I thought I saw someone in here. It seems all fine now." To be honest, I thought he was just messing with us to increase our anxiety. But looking back, I think he was completely honest. He headed back out the room and we continued walking deeper into the psych ward, when another friend swiftly told us to stop. We came to a halt and all listened. In the distance ahead of us, we heard the subtle pitter-patter of footsteps echo through the hallway. We all looked at each other, fear in each of our eyes. Brian continued walking towards the sound. We considered turning back for a second without Brian, wondering if some ghost or something was in the building, but we couldn't do that to him. The closer we got, the more I felt like I was being watched. When, finally, we entered a room on the right, which had the smell of rotting meat. In front of us was a dead deer. Its innards were spilled all over the floor, staining the concrete. A friend of mine had a very weak stomach and vomited all over the floor. That's when we heard whispering from somewhere. Ryan shone his flashlight to the corner of the room where a man with short hair was standing with his head down. He wore a bright green t-shirt stained with what I assumed was blood and torn beige pants. He did not have any socks and his feet seemed damaged. He was twitching sporadically and continued to mumble even after we saw him. We stared at him for a solid 30 seconds before he made his first true movement. He looked up at us with a haunting grin that sent shivers down our spines. You guys here for the feast? He said each word with varying inflection and energy. This kicked us over the edge, and we bolted out of that room all the way back to the daycare center. The door was still open, and we decided to try and slam it shut, but the rust and pure weight of the door almost kept it open. It took 3 of us pulling with all of our strength to close it, and just before we did, I could still see the silhouette of the man watching us. His white teeth being the only other human feature I could see. As we sat behind the middle door, catching our breath for a second, we all looked at each other for confirmation that we all saw the same thing. After a little bit of labored breathing from each of us, we heard a light tapping on the door. That's when we decided it was time to leave. We booked it out of the vicinity completely and ran home. A year after we visited that spot, police went back to do a routine search of the area and found the man. It was stated that this guy used to go to the psych ward before it closed down. He escaped the facility he was transferred to and lived off of the wildlife around the complex. When the cops brought him in, he had a series of diseases and sickness from eating raw meat. His mental conditions was much worse than before. There were future rumors that he did kill someone in the forest while searching for food, but nothing has been confirmed. In the end, guys, be careful, especially in dangerous areas such as abandoned buildings. I'm 28, female, so this story is from years ago. Let's just say my name is Jenna, for the story's sake. I usually visit my family's cottage up north every summer, and on the occasion, on July 4th, Thanksgiving, etc. It's a waterfront cottage, facing a lake, surrounded by a dense forest. It's located on a private beach, so you see your neighbor every once in a while. Everyone comes up north around the same time, so it wouldn't be uncommon to have a chat with others, and thus, everyone knows each other. My cottage sits between 2 others. One is inhabited quite frequently, and one is abandoned, to my knowledge. My family and neighbors know that European family, possibly Polish, German, etc., owns it. I just assume that they hold onto the property to maintain some sort of tangible asset in the United States. Back when I was young, around the age of 18 to 20, my cousins, brothers, and I would get away from our family to smoke weed in the abandoned cottage to avoid any sort of scalding. It was fun, an empty cottage with some furniture that was a time capsule from the 80s. We would peer around and look at the old brown love seat, the dark den, the main living room adjoining to the dining area, and the cute little kitchen with old wine glasses laying around. It was resoundingly acknowledged that others have been through the abandoned cottage as well. There were smoked joints on the ground, footprints, old beer bottles with modern labels, and furniture was always moved around from one position to another. However, the cottage was never spruced up. It was never cleaned nor organized. So we knew that the owners weren't coming by. It was random explorers, perhaps other teenagers, doing the same thing we did. Upon some curious investigation, we saw a basement. We opened the door and saw a staircase that led to a floor that was pure dirt. It looked like a cellar from what I could see. I stood at the bottom of the stairs looking down and saw exposed brick, nothing particularly interesting. Of course, we would freak each other out saying someone lives down there, that there was a serial killer living there, or there was a corpse collection buried under the dirt floors. So none of us would go down there with our independent conviction. It would have to have been a dare or a display of bravery. One day around Thanksgiving, 4 of us, 3 girls and my brother, went to the abandoned cottage to go smoke some joints and gossip about family. I don't see my cousins much, only during special occasions, so we sat on the tables in the dining area to smoke, chill, and chit-chat. Of course, the topic of the basement came up. We laughed and talked about who would go down there, who would most likely survive the serial killer living beneath us, waiting for his next victim to enter his abode. We turned and noticed that the basement was unlocked. And this was unusual, since it was always locked. The one occasion where it was unlocked was when we took a look, or one of my brothers would go down there to freak all the girls out and prove his macho, so to speak. We would always lock it afterwards, purely out of the feeling of some sort of reassurance. We chalked it up to other teenagers just like us, and all of us girls made my older brother get up and lock the door. He stood, looked us all up and down, and jokingly said something along the lines of, "You guys are just pussies, always get a man to do the scary things for you." We laughed, but he was the guy. If there was someone down there, he would be the most likely to defend himself. He's a big guy, 210 pounds and 6'5". He took maybe 3 steps before there was a knock. It sounded like a knock on a hollow surface. I instantly looked at my brother, who looked smug. He said, "You know, if you ask me to do something for you, don't fuck with me whilst I'm doing you a favor." I looked around, waiting for one of the other 2 girls, my cousins, to fess up and mock his masculine courage. It seemed like everyone was resoundingly confused, anxious, and waiting for the same thing I was. I guess my brother saw the reactions and didn't see mine, and concluded that I was the source of the suspicious knocker, since my back was turned to him. "Very funny, Jenna. You think you are such a joker," my brother said with a chuckle. I turned to him, and I guess he saw my anxious face as well. I guess he could read me well. I thought that maybe him walking on the old floors unsettled some of the structural integrity of the building. Maybe it was one of our parents fucking with us. I didn't think it was from a foreign source. I quipped at him, just go and lock the door." He continued walking towards the door, but it opened slightly. He stopped dead in his tracks immediately. "We're going now, fuck that fucking door," one of my cousins sternly said. We all got up from sitting on the tables. We gathered our things, including weed, beer bottles, and phones. We quickly ran to the front door, not daring to look back. My brother was the last of the anxious conga line that was created by the bottleneck of the lone exit. I heard significant footsteps coming from the back of the cottage. I thought it was my brother. I turned back and I swear to God I saw a hand opening the basement door.
Oh my God!
I yelled, "There's someone in the fucking basement." I managed to shakingly say after running down the stairs that led to the front door. "What?" everyone else said. My brother looked back. "Holy shit!" He held onto the sides of my arms to push me to go faster. We heard a foreign voice say,
"Death is only the beginning."
We ran faster, dropping bottles, pipes, and shoes. We ran so fast that our flip-flops fell off. I knew it wasn't any of us, not even one of our parents. It was a low, stern voice from afar. My brother was right behind me. We made our escape to our cottage, thoroughly flustered and terrified. There was a homeless guy in there. I fucking saw him. My brother, out of breath, managed to say, "I guess it was common knowledge that the place was abandoned. I wouldn't neglect the possibility of someone taking refuge in there." I don't know if the guy went into the basement when he heard us coming, then got tired of sitting on the dirt floor, then scared us. I don't know. It's a private beach, so you would have to know the specific location to be able to understand how to get there, and then also know that there's an abandoned property as well. We ran to our parents after proactively hiding our weed stash. Our priorities are certainly well placed, and told them our story. They called the police, and we watched from afar to see what the fuck was going on. I guess the guy left. The police came to us and told us no one was in there, but they let us know to file some sort of report regarding the abandonedness of the cottage. I think that there are some sort of laws that demand that the owners should be using the cottage and executing upkeep. None of us really cared for being the Karens of the situation, so we never filed such a report. At the end of the day, I understand that some people just want to have assets. It would suck to lose out on good property in a nice location. I think they might come back one day, since our neighbors know the family. No one else has ever filed a report to my knowledge. I guess the experience didn't shake up my brother too much, since he went back and gave me details. He found some dead squirrels and dead baby raccoons just laying in the living room. He said they looked quite fresh. I think that they died of natural causes, but how do two different species of animals just die in the same place? I asked him if they were mangled or obviously killed in some way, and he said no. He said the baby raccoons had fur. I did some researching, and I know that baby raccoons aren't born with fur, so I deducted that they were alive for some time, then somehow died in the living room. I don't want to know if something or someone killed them in there, or maybe killed them in another place and then brought them in there to give some sort of message to any oncoming visitors. I hope it isn't the homeless guy.